I want to turn it over to Bill Russo of Automobility Advisors to introduce Bruno. Bill.
Thanks, Nick, and good morning from Shanghai. Bruno and I are actually both in the same time zone. We're in Shanghai together, not in the same place. I'm just by way of introduction, for those who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Automobility Limited. We are a strategy and investment advisory firm based here in China. Our focus is to help startups globally find a business path forward. We work with a portfolio of interesting companies, including Bruno's startup MOV Automotive. And I'll also be introducing two other companies here today. So thanks to Howard, Nick, and the Doon Insights team for the opportunity to participate here. The future mobility, I mean, we were just talking about in the previous group of connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. When I met Bruno a few years ago, he was with a startup EV company called Iconic. And I've worked with him now over the course of a few years where he's really pivoting. Early in his career, he worked at Magnus Tire and really had a focus on the manufacturing and supply chain, how to make that more efficient. And as he's progressed through his career, he's actually taken on a focus of how to really not only connect with the future, but to optimize or deliver a solution that doesn't just meet the auto industry optimization problem, which is how do you utilize factory assets and sell vehicles into a population of mobility, or I'd say automotive demand. But over time, he's evolved into solving the problem of how do you optimize the movement of people and goods, which after all is the purpose of our industry. Our industry isn't just to sell product, it's to optimize human mobility, optimize the movement of people and things. That's what MOV Automotive has taken on as a challenge. And you know, I think the optimization problem, when viewed that way, really emphasizes the shared economy, because it's the shared economy that creates the demand for movement. We have, as people, the needs to move ourselves and the needs to have goods moved to us, and it's the optimization of that movement that is ultimately the problem that Bruno and his startup is trying to solve. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Bruno.
Thanks, Bill. Nice to meet you all. So I'm Bruno. I've been 10 years in China now. I came here with Magnus Tire to lead the Chinese operation. And in the past 6 years, I was mostly involved on electric vehicle programs, starting from the early days of supporting NIO and then creating a joint venture between Magna and Beijing Auto. But later on, joining Iconic Motors as their CEO and moving afterwards to a mobility service company to acquire, were the first mobility service company acquiring a car company, and which led me to identify this opportunity, which I will introduce today. So we see in our industry that we have been very successful at convincing customers to buy cars, even if sometimes they don't use them much. And so the status we have in front of our eyes today is more than 1 billion private cars, which are used only 5% of the time. And at the same time, we have two ecosystems in our cities, which are coexisting: the ecosystem of people movement and the ecosystem of goods movement. But unfortunately, they are usually not connecting. So on one hand, we have millions of underutilized drivers, which have a need for more stable income. And at the same time now a growing demand on the last mile delivery with a same day demand and competitive pricing. And all the pandemic has been showing is that this waste or between those two ecosystems has been further emphasized. So how do we connect those millions of underutilized drivers with the demand of goods movement? We have seen that Uber has started to launch a little bit less than 1 year ago, Uber Direct, to offer to their driver an alternative request for goods movement with their passenger vehicle. But they are not able really to scale this because there is one missing piece in the puzzle here, which is a purpose-built vehicle to enable this. And what happened if we could increase the percentage of usage of the vehicle? So this is a vision of the future from Hyundai, which I like the most. It's really how to optimize the movement in our cities. But the status quo is more on the left. And how do we move from the left to the right? There are still a lack of concrete solution today. And while everybody is working on autonomous driving, this is still some years to go. And therefore, we identified additional opportunities to complement this. And the end goal is to ultimately reduce the amount of cars which need to be produced, because there is already a lot of emission and waste of natural resources through the production of cars, and remove parking space requirement in city. And while for sure the growth of the number of units sold will shift, we know that the growth of the service and the mobility requirements will actually largely compensate that. And this is what we can see here on this analysis of urban mobility revenue distribution from around about $3 trillion business today. We are going to more than double in the next decade, which is basically emphasizing this so-called transportation as a service market. And in this transportation as a service market, from our point of view, there are new cards which are required to compete. And those new cards are not anymore only the vehicle brand and the technology, but it's really about asset management. What do we do with our vehicles on a daily basis? How do we enable, maximize revenue generation with those vehicles? And at the same time, how those vehicles interact with the end users through optimized UI UX, which is ultimately going to be more and more the new brand associated with mobility. So we have a vision where every vehicle can fulfill its potential. And we have grouped a team of executives coming from tech, from auto, and also from transportation business. So Andres was one creating the delivery service partner program with Amazon a few years ago, and afterwards moving to Lyft before joining us. And then we have also a group of very experienced and influential advisors in our board, which some of you probably recognize the names, including Bill, which just introduced us. So we believe we have unlocked a new solution to move from the case you just talked about and add the P of productivity to create more space in our cities. And this is really complementary to the other trends. But our focus is, as I said, on what do we do with our vehicles on a daily basis, and how do we enable a higher productive usage? What is a solution to move everyone and everything with optimum efficiency and true sustainability? So our solution is to combine a set of productive technology with a subscription model to create competitive transportation services. I'm sorry, I cannot share yet the pictures of our vehicle, which actually is ready, but we are preparing for a big reveal. So I will need to just give you some teaser here. But our first vehicle will be ready for launch in 2 years. We are having a strategic partner for the platform, but we have developed a very unique concept for the vehicle itself, which enable to have two competitive vehicles in one. And I insist on the word competitive. And then 2 years later, we are already working on the L4 variant of this similar approach of moving both people and goods. We all know that today, when we work on autonomous vehicle, the ultimate goal will be the productivity of those vehicles. And we cannot just imagine that we will have a fleet of robopods carrying us, driving us to work in the morning, and then going out of the city to sleep during the day in low-cost area to come back to pick us up in the afternoon. We have to find smarter solution, and the smarter solution here is to combine goods and people movement together. So we have redefined a completely the vehicle architecture to really create two competitive vehicles in one. Normally, the people movement requirements are diverging from the goods movement requirement, and that's the main challenge. How do we create a vehicle which can really compete in both use cases? And we have unlocked here key technology to enable that. with a conversion time between the two use cases of 30 seconds, which enable us to really, at any hour of the day, allocate the vehicle to the highest demand, either goods or people movement, and add at least 40% of additional gross revenue for the transportation business. This is what it's all about. We live in cities which are made of movement of goods and people. And when we analyze the pattern, one of the big challenge to have a path to profitability for ride-hailing platforms is that the fluctuation of people movement demand is too high. From the lows to the highs, we have a multiple of 5 in most cities, and therefore it's very difficult to associate the right supply and to that very high fluctuating demand. Most of the time, the ride-hailing platform have been using their drivers as a buffer, leading to some conflict on the employment side and with the government stepping in, as we have seen recently in London, in the UK, for example. So ultimately, we need to solve that by rethinking how the vehicle is being used to enable higher productivity. And those two ecosystems, as we said, are coexisting, but ultimately the use cases are complementary. So when a delivery driver is stuck in traffic in the morning, he would better be moving people around at the highest fee possible. And vice versa, when a ride-hailing driver is waiting for a customer in the middle of the afternoon, he could actually move goods around at the higher speed. So that's simply turning waste of one use case into the highest productivity of the other use case. But this is only possible if the vehicle can be competitive for both. And as you can see in our simulation of the US market, cost and revenue structure, we are able to increase at least by 40% the revenue generation through this type of dual mode usage, and even an opportunity to increase further, including some digital services as well. So what our innovations are all about, I cannot show you the picture of the vehicle yet, but I wish I could here on this live and public forum, but you will see it very soon. But we have already developed all those proprietary solutions. And basically it starts with the vehicle modularity. We have a very unique space architecture which enable our smart seat and smart cabin, which creates this conversion concept with a very unique space as well to create the consumer engagement for ride-hailing. So we have the largest digital room on wheels with more than 30 square feet of digital surface in front of the end user. I repeat, 30 square feet is more than 10 times what the Mercedes Hyperscreen, which has been presented last December. And we have a concept to engage with the consumers through that digital room. And this digital room is only enabled because of the unique space architecture we have in the vehicle, which create more distance, obviously, between the passenger and the screen, which has always been the key constraints for our vehicle design and connectivity solutions. By enabling this digital room, we are also opening the door to a lot of data and services revenues. And this is here what we are working on as well on the software side with our team in California to develop further solutions. Ultimately, we believe by creating more revenue, we are actually able to stabilize the ecosystem of urban transportation, not with the goods movement on one side or people movement on the other side, but all integrating together. And that's the key to serve all stakeholders with more value. There is so much waste in our transportation ecosystem today that when we tackle a part of this waste, we really create a unique value proposal. So all those stakeholders can benefit. And ultimately, also the cities achieve lower carbon footprint because every vehicle, which is before it's even being driven for the first time, has already produced more than 10 tons of carbon footprint. So we need to make sure this heavy investment need to be used fully. And more we are producing vehicles which can live longer. Today, every new vehicle we bring to the street can be probably driven at least 400,000 miles. Later on, probably it will grow to the million-mile target, which Elon Musk mentioned. So, but none of us today, on average, is using our car much more than 10,000 miles per year. So ultimately, none of us either will use the same car for the next 50 years. So we really have the huge opportunity on the usage of the asset here. And this creates a unique value proposal for all those stakeholders. So when we look at the total available market, we don't look at the number of vehicles only which are being sold every year. We look at the transportation as a service revenue. And we, as I introduced, all of those services are growing fast, but we see the opportunity in grocery delivery, ride-hailing, and parcel delivery. For all the three major markets, these businesses, even with an optimized productivity, even if we increase significantly the current status of usage of those businesses, we would require more than 20 million additional vehicles to serve those requirements in the next 4 years. And ultimately, we believe we can be really complementary with our solution to all the other mega trends. So first of all, with higher usage, we can accelerate the vehicle electrification in terms of total cost of ownership, but as well as focused infrastructure. As we pointed out, the path to profitability for shared mobility is key here, but we are really able to create a very high value proposal offering entry-level cost of ride-hailing with a premium space, which is including the best digital experience. And then we are able to prepare the path for autonomous driving and greener cities. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bruno. Really appreciate that. So I'd love to turn it over to some Q&A from the audience. Does anyone have something on the top of their mind they'd like to say? It's a wide open space right now. Go ahead and jump in.
Hey, Bruno, Sebastian, good to see you again.
Hey.
How are you? How would you see the usage of the time in the cabin being different from a Shanghai market where you both lived, or you still are there, to a North American market? Do you see there a difference, what the people would be craving for? You mentioned this huge screen. Is it just the content of the screen, or do we need the screen actually in both markets?
I think we need the screen in both markets because ultimately, if we especially target the younger crowd, which is going to be the highest demand down the road for shared mobility, there is definitely a focus on the digital experience, which comes from all the studies which have been run. The challenge we all had was to move people away from looking at the screen of their phone. But when you move from 8-inch phone to a 15-inch screen in the car, it's not changing your life. Here we are moving to a 72-inch OLED screen in front of them, which can actually be also folded down to enable actually a more normal configuration of a vehicle. So this is again creating a very unique architecture and configuration, which is flexible for the user.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions to ask Bruno before we let him go? Not at this time. Well, Bruno, do you have any guidance on when you'll be announcing this publicly and when we'll be able to see pictures of the actual device in public?
We are targeting for a reveal around May now, and the start of production will be in July 23.
Wonderful, wonderful, great. Well, we'll be sure to follow up with you later, and hopefully we can announce that to our network as well when it's time.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks a lot, Bruno. Appreciate it.